Good morning and welcome to the third lecture of mine in the lecture series on karma and science. In the earlier lectures, we talked about the basic details of the nervous system, including that of the brain. We learned about the intricacies of this marvelous system and organ and also about its functioning. We know that all karmas are initiated and planned in our mind, and the execution is planned in the brain and it is further delivered to the body for action. Thus we can formulate a more significant role of the brain and mind in the genesis of karma. The next two lectures are focused on the scientific details of the sensations and the perception. In today's deliberation, I'll take you along defining and differentiating sensations and the perceptions, basic features of the primary sensations, and correlating scientific knowledge with the Jain philosophical understanding. As per the scientific belief, the essential component of consciousness are sensory perception, analysis, and storage of information, and to create an appropriate response. Unlike other features of the consciousness, sensations are the most perceptible and have been extensively explored by the scientists. To fulfill our today's aim, we shall walk along the following milestones. First, to distinguish between the sensations and the perception. What are our sensations? Identifying each major sensory system and correlate them with the Jain philosophy wherever possible. All animals in the kingdom exhibit the basic properties of growth, reproduction, environmental sensing, responding behavior, and death. Sensory information is necessary for the brain and mind to initiate a process of thinking and imagination. Neuropsychologists have been exploring the problem of sensation and perception for a long time, and they have definitely advanced a lot. While our initial observations were limited to cadaver studies or the experimental observations with the ablation or stimulation techniques, we are now armed with a number of sophisticated investigations such as electroencephalography, EEG, magnetoencephalography, MEG, functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, positron emission tomography, PET, neurotransmitter studies, hormonal profile, and genetic studies to describe changes in the human and in animals during the cognitive processings. While our philosophical interpretations are rich with perceptions or darshan, it lacks quantification and is subject of multiple interpretations. Thus, there is a critical need that we analyze these issues with scientific investigations. The slide in this diagram shows neural activation during the sensations. We have been accurately identifying the objects or the areas of the brain which are involved when the different sensations are stimulated. Example, visual, you can see at the back occipital cortex. Similarly, sensory motor strip, which was there till experimentally and in cadavers only, now we can see in the live in the human being. So, and similarly the default mode network we talked in the last lecture also can be visualized. Thus, fMRI has given us a tremendous strength in understanding the functioning and the structure of various processes. Our senses are a specialized system for perceiving the environment and changes within our body. Sensations refer to the series of physical processes that begins with the stimulation of sensory receptors responding to the external or exteroceptors or internal stimuli or interoceptors and end at the activation in the brain. They are perceived through basic modalities, namely the chemical senses or the chemoreceptions, example being taste and the smell, the light sense, also known as photoreception or the vision, the mechanical sensations, known as mechanoreception, examples are touch, balance, and hearing, temperature sense, known as thermoreception, and electric sense, known as electroception, that is present in certain species. Sensory information is needed for basic activities of life, maintaining homeostasis in the body, and for higher mental activities. Till recently, we were focused primarily on the basic sensory perceptions. We have now shifted our focus and advanced to the discriminative sensations and the multimodal interpretations. It involves the three steps: reception, transduction, and transmission. Reception sensory receptors are specialized cell groups that respond to a stimulus or an energy source such as sound, light, heat, mechanical pressure, etc. Sensory signals, though different from different sensations, shares a common function to translate the stimulus into electrical signals that excite the corresponding nerve. The transformation of stimulus or the energy into neural impulses is known as transduction. While receptors are capable of detecting weak signals as well, to initiate an action, certain amount of strength is needed in the stimulus for the impulse to transduct to the electrical one. Transmission. It means delivering these signals to the brain for processing. Before we proceed further, it's essential that we identify the meanings of the sensations and the perception. Sensations and sensory receptors share a few properties that are common to almost all of them. Sensations are a first-person perception and absolutely private one. Other persons can appreciate it with the motor or emotional reactions generated by the subject. When receptors in sense organs are activated, they allow stimulus to become neural signals. That is essentially the sensations. These stimuli or these informations are filtered and analyzed before message is sent to the brain. This is known as sensory reduction or appropriation. Coming to the perception, it is referred to as the interpretation of the sensations. It can be described as making sense of the stimuli. It allows the processing of sensory information about what is happening in the external world or within the body. It's a direct, immediate, effortless, and quite accurate process. Creation and awareness of perception of thoughts and sensory informations are at the highest level of mind and in the consciousness. A large proportion of the cerebral cortex is devoted to perception. Neuroscientists are actively studying the role and extent of the association cortex in the perception. Although sensation is initiated at the sensory receptors located in the periphery, perceptions occur in the brain, spinal cord, ganglia, and in the autonomic nervous system. This busy slide introduces you about the sensory systems and some of the type of sensations we will be dealing. Sensory organs can be classified into the four categories. Exteroception, we'll be talking shortly, where the stimuli is in the external environment. Interoception, stimuli is within our own body. Spatial sensations and some non-human animal sensations. Coming to the exteroceptor sensations or the external sensations, science has identified 7 external sensations, while the public perception and in philosophy throughout there are 5 known as panchendriya, and these are touch, taste, smell, vision and hearing. Science has identified 2 more important external sensations. They are the vestibular sense and the kinesthetic, which concern with the body movements, body posture and the orientation. We'll be talking to them in little detail later. Somatosensation, which involves touch, temperature, pain and vibrations, whereas the smell, taste, hearing and vision, they all are part of the visceral sensations, but they are external sensations. The development, as you see on the right side in the color diagram, the development of sensory organs and system is a product of complex series of dynamic and adaptive processes of natural selection and as per the demand of the environment. Except for the vision, that is retina, which develops an extension of the forebrain, all other exteroceptive sensory organs develop from the embryonic ectoderm along with the other neuronal and secretory cells. While sensory organs for the sight, hearing, taste, smell and balance are located in the head or cranium, somatosensations including thermoceptions, proprioceptions and nociception or the pain impulses and vibration sense are distributed throughout the body on the surface. Now these exteroceptive sensations, as we have seen, they can be divided into the 2 major groups: general sensations such as touch, pressure, pain and temperature, and special senses like vision, hearing, taste, smell, sense of body position and the movement. While each sensations or sensory modality has got their own receptors, there is an amazing ability to distinguish different sensations once the impulses are being driven into the spinal cord and higher up in the medulla and the thalamus and the brain. Coming to the second category of the sensations or the sensory receptors, we have got interoceptors or the viscoceptors, which are concerning with the sensations within the internal organ viscera. They are specialized sensory organs that respond to the stimuli occurring in the body from visceral organs and the blood vessels. Axons from these receptors conducted impulses. Usually they are pain or the reflex sensations to the central nervous system. They respond to a variety of stimulations, be it mechanical, chemical and possibly thermal. They are also concerned with many internal milieux such as body temperature, blood pressure, gas concentration and pressure, and movement of the viscera. On most occasions, we are consciously not aware of their functioning. They are part of the autonomic nervous system. Chemoreceptors in the brain and circulatory system regulate blood levels of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, electrolytes, water, sugar, and other blood constituents, hormones, hunger, thirst, nausea, and vomiting. So, very important functions are being done by these viscoreceptors. Stretch receptors in the lungs and the heart regulate respiration, pressure in the cardiac chamber, and the blood pressure. Neural elements in the gastrointestinal system and urinary bladder regulate important functions like digestion and the nutrition absorption, immune responses, microbiota colonization, intestinal barrier functions, and maturation. The nerves which carry these impulses from the visceral sensations are cranial nerves, namely vagus, trigeminal, glossopharyngeal, and few other cranial nerves. They carry the fiber from circulatory system, pulmonary system, gastrointestinal system, renal system to the brain. Now I will mention briefly about the many sensations in the body. They are yet to be explored and some of them are listed below. Sense of speech. Though speech which I am right now doing is a motor function, but what you understand or what you are listening is a sensory phenomena. The language function is a recent addition to animal capabilities and it is most developed in humans. Comprehension of spoken speech or a gesture language is a well-defined function and it occupies a large area in the temporal and parietal lobe known as Wernicke's areas. Contrast to this, the motor functions of the speech are carried in the Broca's area. Another important science is the science of thought. We not only generate thoughts but also observe that of others. Our capability of mind reading is perhaps an extension of this domain. However, no particular area in the brain can be assigned to this functioning. Sense of time or chronoception is an important one. We are aware of this one and this is popularly referred to as circadian rhythm. It is regulated by the pineal gland and controls many of our body functions through this. Another is the magnetoreception, present mostly in the birds and other animals. This allows them to find out the direction and the placement. That's how you see many birds, they come from Siberia to India and vice versa. Animals, in addition, there are many sensations which are specific to the animals, and many animals they are better in primary sensations or the sensations which we have described earlier, such as a stronger sense of smell in elephant and dogs, taste in catfish, hearing in cavefish, touch and vibration in spiders, and visions in eagles and octopuses. Uh, some of the non-human animal sensations not present in the human being in a overt way are electroception, as we see in the electrical phase, echolocation in the bats, infraradiations, ultraviolet and the polarized lights, hygrosensations. This guide us or guide an animal about the weather which is likely to come in the due course. Having talked to you on the sensations in general and few points about the internal sensations and the visceral sensations, now I am coming to the primary sensations and we will be talking all seven one by one. Somatosensations, also known as the touch or Sparshendriya in the Hindi, is perhaps the first one sense to develop in the animal kingdom. Unicellular organisms, devoid of any nervous tissue or the brain, such as amoeba and the paramecium, is bounded by a cell wall that respond to the environment through the senses of the touch. In humans, The touch receptors are located in the skin, which is the largest organ in the body. These receptors, they respond to the touch, known as tactile sensations, temperature, known as thermosensations or thermoception, pressure or baroreceptors, and the pain, known as nociceptions. However, these receptors are not uniformly distributed over the body. For example, the density of the touch or the tactile receptor are highest at the fingertips, tongue, lip, nose, and forehead, then at the back, soles of the feet, and is covered, and these areas are covered with the hair generally. The variation in such responses correlate with the importance of their inputs and the cortical area in the brain devoted to them. Sense of touch has qualitative variations. One can perceive texture, pressure, warmth, and pain. Our tactile perception is a combination of all these responses. Another important property of the tactile sensation is that can easily be fatigued with continuous exposure. Tactile informations by the receptor is of the two types. They can be precise information such as fine touch, vibrations, kinesthetics, and the proprioceptions. These fibers are located in the posterior or the back part of the spinal cord when they ascend up to the thalamus and to the brain. Then another type of fibers are the sensations are the non-specific or non-localizing sensations or the informations such as pain, temperature, crude touch, and pressure. They enter the spinal cord from the side or the lateral part of the spinal cord and ascend upward to the thalamus and to the brain. I will touch briefly about the kinesthetics or the proprioception. It is the least acknowledged exteroceptive sensations in the philosophical literature. The reasons are not known, whether it's ignorance or overlooking it. Their receptors are located throughout the skin, muscles, tendons, and the joints. Combining the cues or the signals from the skin, eyes, ears, it helps in detecting body movements, body position, and how much force is required to move it. In absence of this sense, very important one will have to have a visual cue only to find out the position of the limb and their movements. Thus, proprioception very important and need to be considered even in the philosophy also. The sense of balance is the last of the exteroceptive sensations to be recognized by the scientific community. Role of the vestibular system as a sensory organ dates back to the early 1800s. Even in philosophical and religious literature, this sense has not been acknowledged as a primary sensory modality. Reasons are not known. Receptors of the balance, the vestibular system, are three semicircular canals and two otolith organs that are located in the inner ear just near the cochlea. They are lined with the hair and filled with the fluid. These sense vestibular organs are responsible for coordination of eye movements, postural and equilibrium. They detect gravity, acceleration and deceleration, linear motions, rotational movements that occurs during the head turns, body movements and direction, and postural equilibrium and balance. In general, children have a higher sensitive vestibular system compared to that of adults. This system works in close relationship with proprioception and vision sense. Thus, we can make out that the vestibular system is akin to an angular rate sensor or a gyroscope. Taste, swad, or rasendriya is the second sensation to be developed in the animal kingdom. It is perhaps the weakest sense in the human body. Substances present in the mouth when mixed with saliva comes in contact with the taste receptors located mainly over the tongue and also in the surrounding areas of the mouth. In animals, it helps in sensing nutrition and to distinguish between the edible and the inedible. This can be both during conscious and the unconscious awareness. Taste and smell are the most interconnected senses. In human, it is mainly to define our preferences for the food. Till recently, the four basic tastes sweet, salt, sour, and bitter were recognized as the primary taste modalities. Recently, a Japanese scientist discovered another sense known as umami related to the proteins, a severe test. We have other tastes such as salt, sour, bitter, and umami are learned. Sweet taste is universal. They are present in all animal kingdom, but other taste they are learned and they are present in the different component, their different strength in different animals. They all have their survival functions. As example, sweet is related to the energy source, sour and the bitter they are related to the toxic or the poisonous substances. As I suggested, umami is related to the protein which is essential for the growth and repair, and salty is basically for the maintaining physiological processes. In general, taste is an important component of rush or the enjoyment of the food. As in case of smell, adaptation occurs for the taste as well and is category specific. That is, adaptation to salt doesn't influence the adaptation of sour or vice versa. This is the third sensation to make an appearance in the animal kingdom. The olfactory system is one of the primitive and weak sensory system. Sense of olfaction, though important for many animals, is considered a minor sense in humans compared to vision and hearing. Despite olfactory signals being weaker, cortical areas of the integration and discrimination of smell sensations are very large in human. Receptors in the nose detect airborne odor molecules. These chemical substances reaches the nose not only during inhalation but also through the mouth retronasal way while eating. It has appeared comparatively earlier in phylogenetic development and provide information related to the identifying food, potential mating partner, dangers and enemies in animals. The sense of any olfaction or the smell is intimately linked to survival instinct, memories, language and speech, cognition, emotions, mood, behavior, ego, attraction, interpersonal relationship, and sexuality. Odor sensitivity has a gender bias, as women are more sensitive to odor than that in the men. Light or visual sense occupies the supreme sensations in the human being. Both cerebral cortex as well as the scientific research are mainly devoted to this sense, and research is carrying out in a lot because it's most quantifiable and most observed sensations and observation in the human being. Solar radiations reaching Earth lies between 300 to 1100 nanometers. 1 billionth of a meter is nanometer. Humans can perceive light in the wavelength of 370 to 730 nanometer. These waves are converted into electrical impulses in the retina, and there they are transmitted to the visual cortex. The visual sense contributes most to our awareness, occupies approximately one-third of the human cerebral cortex. Its input is easier to block compared to smell or hearing, which cannot be blocked at will. In the scientific community, it is the most commonly explored sense across all the senses. Visual sense, also known as drashti or chakshvendriya, are very important, as I suggested. Humans are blessed with an amazing eye. Light is a form of electromagnetic radiation that travels all around us and that are amplified by wavelengths or frequencies. It travels fast, about 300 million meters per second in a vacuum and in a straight line. Vision sense detect light patterns and interpret them into 3D visions. We are blessed with the binocular visions, and color visions will be talking in the next slide. The depth perception is important property given to the human beings. Color vision is one of the important and is a boon given by the nature to humans. Different colors have different wavelength. Human color vision involves three types of retinal sensory receptors. That's the red, green, and the blue. Cones, the receptor for these signals, they combine their input to produce a multiple colors. It is estimated that humans have the capability to distinguish approximately 10 million different colors. Thus, the great strength of the eye lies in the color vision. Hearing, or the gandh or the granendriya, is the auditory link of us to the external world. The auditory or hearing sense is perhaps the last one to develop among the five common senses, panchendriya. The reasons for lies in the fact that sound waves or the pressure waves, they are weak compared to other electromagnetic waves such as light, and requires a mechanism to amplify them. Sound is measured by the following three aspects: loudness or the intensity, which is measured in the decibels. Pitch refers to the frequency and how fast the air is vibrates to produce that sound. Third important is the quality of the sound, which is distinguished mainly in the speech or in the music or in the poems, known as timbre. White noise produced in many of our instruments are frequency of all frequencies combined at the same time, approximately 20,000. Our ear is the organ for perceiving sounds. It has three parts, namely outer or the external ear, middle ear, and the inner ear. While the first two, external and middle ear, are there to conduct the sound, the inner ear houses the cochlea, which is mainly to appreciate, or it is appreciate the sound or the sensory organ for the hearing. Sound enters in the ear through the external ear or sometimes through the mastoid as a vibration. The human ear is capable of perceiving sounds with frequency between 30 to 20,000 hertz. Sound once enter the external ear, it strikes the eardrum and vibrates it. Eardrum on vibration further vibrates the tiny bones situated inside the inner ear or in the cochlea, which intensify it. It hits the cilia or the tiny ears. Vibrating cilia send signals to the auditory nerve to the brain. Sorry. Women are typically better at hearing higher frequencies. Frequencies above the human range, that is the 20,000 hertz, are called ultrasound. Many animals, such as dogs, cats, bats, and dolphins, are capable of perceiving sound much beyond the human range. Like all other sensations, auditory perception is also a multi-step process that includes detection, discrimination, identifying, and recognition, comprehension. We have a stereophonic hearing, which is important in comprehending language and the music. Ladies and gentlemen, so far we have talked about the importance of the sensations, its differentiation with the perception. We have talked about the various basic sensations which are available to the human beings. To conclude my talk, a significant gap continues to persist between science, that's the physical phenomena, and our personal experience known as subjective phenomena, often taken in the philosophy. It is perhaps the consciousness which may be the missing link. Conscious perception involves object sense and a complex process involving the primary cortex, association cortices, and reciprocal connections with the memory stores. The development of sensations in the animal kingdom, from touch upward to the hearing, is akin both in philosophy and in the science. We call commonly as panchendriya, but what we have seen that there are 7 primary sensory organs. In spite of many divergent views on sense, sensory organs, and perceptions, there are many meeting points as well between the science and the philosophy. Such divergent views can be a stimulus to philosophers and to scientists to solve mysteries and come out with a simple but logical solution. I thank you all a lot for sharing my dialogues on one of the important topics of the sensations and the nervous system. I hope you must have enjoyed it. Having loaded you with a large amount of information, it is now your turn to dissect the subject with lot many queries. Perhaps I may be able to answer few of them.